Now 250,000. Now, but to get 275. High, but to get 275. 3. Now 300,000. Now 3 1/4. 325. High, but to get 3 1/4. But to get 325. Now half. Now, but to get 300.
And hello from Dallas. Welcome to the Mike McGavel Jones Show. We're in Dallas, Texas at the LBJ Freeway and the North Dallas Tollway. And we want to welcome each and every one of you to the show today. We've got a very interesting program, and I think you're going to enjoy the content. I want to say good morning to John P McQuade. How are you, sir?
I'm fine, thank you.
So I usually talk a little bit about the weekend and what's been going on before we get into what we're going to talk about, but I wanted to say good morning to you. We've had some crazy weather here.
Yes, we have.
And a week ago, I returned from Waco and drove straight into these straight line winds. They call them straight line winds, but those straight line winds can pick up the front end of a pickup and turn cars over. And so it was a pretty dramatic return from the Texas Auctioneers Association convention that we had. And so we want to give a special shout out to the folks from the Texas Auctioneers Association and all the champions. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention that all of the categories, it's not bragging if it's fact, the rookie champion, the senior champion, the team champions, and the state champion auctioneers all are graduates of the Texas Auction Academy, now America's Auction Academy. And so our auction school, very proud of these people, and I'll cover that another time. We'll have some of those folks on the show. But we had a great convention down in Waco, Texas, and looking forward to the National Auctioneers Association convention that will be down in New Orleans in about a month. And a lot of these people will be competing, so we'll be pulling for those folks. But Morgan Hobson, who is a great auctioneer and a graduate of our school, but also one of our United Country agents, United Country Real Estate, our franchise system. We're real proud of her. She's a TCU graduate. She's a very accomplished violinist. It's just so pleasing and an honor to have these people that are really coming on strong and being successful. So congratulations to those folks as we recover from our storm damage that took the roof off of our building, and also getting past all of the water in the unit. And it's just amazing the amount of weather that we've had here. And then it hit again yesterday, and I noticed another friend of ours, Craig Davis from over in Arlington, his home was hit and his studio was destroyed, and so he was directly hit by the tornado yesterday in Arlington. So I don't know what's going on, but I want it to stop. John?
Oh, I do too. I hope it's not the end of the world.
Well, it's not the end of the world, but it's marginal.
I know that we had some water damage in our business, so
you know what I'm talking about.
we're off. Yes, very sympathetic.
Well, I want to talk a little bit first about who you are and your history. I think the main thing that we're going to talk about today is the Greyhound Adoption League of Texas and now New Mexico. You're building a footprint, but I want you to tell us what exactly is this. Tell me back, because before you and I had met, I was not familiar with it.
Well, we've been in the charity business, that is adopting out ex-racing greyhounds, since 2001. We started here in Dallas, Texas as a small group, and we've, not by intention, but we've morphed into the largest single unit in the country doing what we do. We have grown in reputation, and we have a good volunteer base. We work very hard, and the growth has been due to our great volunteers, which you saw in action several weeks ago at an event that in which you helped us raise money, and we do appreciate that. We have probably adopted and handled over 4,000 hounds in the 18 years we've been in business. We work throughout Texas. We have a chapter in Austin. We work with groups out of San Antonio, and we also Houston, and we have groups that we work with and people we work out in West Texas, and of course our newest chapter is in New Mexico, in Albuquerque and Santa Fe. That has given us a great capacity to house more hounds because there's a tsunami of greyhounds coming. They're coming at the end of 2020 due to the racing ban that was voted in this year in Florida. The tracks will be closing down, and many of those dogs are Texas dogs, and we're expecting between 1,000 and 1,500 over a period of 6 to 9 months, beginning in 2021, when all the tracks and racing will cease in Florida.
So you're the founder of this organization.
I am the founder, along with my bride.
Yep, and
Susie
chairman,
McQuade.
board of director, and so how did this happen? How did you get involved in this?
Very simply, I met a greyhound.
That's a great line.
I did.
That'd be a great bumper sticker. Hashtag I met a greyhound.
I met a greyhound one day, and one of my clients had a greyhound, and he was in senior housing business, and he was talking about this wonderful dog that he takes to work with him each and every day. Heretofore, I had no experience with a greyhound except watching them race, perhaps on television or in a video. Mm-hmm. I grew up in Oklahoma in the horse racing industry, quarter horses, and these hounds and the races seemed to be quite similar to the animals I was used to training, riding, and even I was a jockey at one time when I was 50 years and probably 50 pounds lighter.
That takes me. We're going to go full circle on this, okay? I want to go back to Tulsa. Take me back to Tulsa.
Tulsa time.
Yeah. Tell me. Let's go back to when you were a child. You know, what kind of a home life did you have growing up in Tulsa?
Well, I was born there, and however, when I was quite young, we moved to the Panhandle of Oklahoma to a large tract of land. My father always wanted to raise cattle and horses. It was something he liked to do. So we moved, and took my mother decades to forgive him for moving out. That's such a remote area.
What was the closest town?
Oh, Woodward, Gage.
Yeah, you were out there.
Well, we had a landing strip. We were fortunate. Dad was a World War II pilot, Navy pilot, carrier pilot. Mm-hmm. And we had a little Piper Cub and a landing strip that gave us some access to civilization. When he was around to fly us somewhere. Yeah. Otherwise, it was quite a trek to go somewhere.
So you grow up out there. Where did you go to school? Where did you go to your basic school?
Oh, there, a school that actually was only a mile and a half from the ranch.
Just a country school.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get to the point where you can actually leave, and you go off to college?
No, we went back to Tulsa, when I was 14.
Okay.
My adolescence was there.
Okay.
I attended parochial schools. I was a high school wrestler. As I told you, I used to weigh about 50 pounds less than I weigh now. I weighed about between 119 and 123 pounds, depending on what weight the coaches needed me to compete.
Sure. Well, I remember being 50 pounds lighter. So you go to parochial schools, and then give me the transition. So you decide you're going to go to college, or how did that happen?
Yes, I actually went to Oklahoma State.
What was your major?
Economics.
Economics with a minor.
Oh, that was it.
Showing up.
Oh, my minor was wrestling, collegiate wrestling.
Uh-huh. Did you go on a scholarship?
I did.
Oh, that's nice. Okay, so you're a cowboy, Oklahoma State cowboy. All right. And see, I didn't realize that. I knew you had lived in Tulsa. I didn't know where you went to college. I don't want to know everything ahead of time. Otherwise, there's no point in you showing up. I could just sit here and talk about you. So you go to Oklahoma State, and then what happened?
Well, I graduated and had to go into real life, and in that case, that was the Marine Corps.
There seems to be a commonality about your personality that makes sense that you would go in the Marine Corps, and so you go off to basics and do all that stuff, and then come back, and then what happens?
Well, I got through the Corps. I survived and came back home, and I took a job trying to reorientate myself or reintegrate myself into modern or normal society. I took a job as a railroad engineer, actually, with the Frisco Railroad. I drove trains for 3 years.
Well, that's interesting. I've never heard that story.
Well, it's a true story. I started out as a fireman, and I learned that firemen only had one duty, and it was to pour the engineers coffee. Evidently, I excelled at that because I was an apprentice and became an operator of locomotives out of Tulsa, running through Missouri to Texas and western Oklahoma.
Back in Oklahoma.
I do have one railroad story. I'll only tell you one. It's the day I hit a house.
Nice.
Yeah, a joke is I'm hoping they still sing folk songs about me around the campfire.
So, what years were you active in the railroad community?
Oh my, it was 72 to 70, actually almost a decade. However, I ceased operating an engine as I...
Was that because of the house episode?
Oh, no. I had entered law school by then, and my local union and system union thought I should be an executive of the union since I was going to law school.
Well, tell me, you must go further into the hitting the house. I've got to hear the story, the whole story, nothing but the story.
Well, the story goes like this. I was called out as I was working the extra board, didn't have the seniority to have a regular run in that day, and it was a work train. I was going to carry Chad. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning when we left Tulsa going south, and sun was not up yet, and I saw something on the track that shouldn't be there, a large black object. I was going downhill and at a very legal but rapid speed, and it was a short, heavy train, and don't have a lot of brakes, and I talked to my brakeman, and I got on the radio and talked to my conductor, and said, I think we're going to hit a house. And I said to myself, well, they didn't cover this in the engineer's instruction manual.
This wasn't in the book.
No, it was not in the book. And it was too dark to jump, and I was moving too fast, and so headlight hit the house, and it was a 2-story farmhouse that high centered on a country crossing. I didn't leave the track to hit the house. You don't have to steer those trains; they steer themselves. And it was a bootleg house move. Someone did not want to pay for the permits. There was somebody on top.
Wow.
Trying to move a power line with a 2x4, saw my headlights and did bail.
Mm-hmm.
I decided just to hit the house as fast as I could go.
And
how
did that work out?
You
didn't derail?
We did not derail. We did worry about that.
I bet.
We hit it that fast enough that we could burst through the home, and then I went to full emergency after I knew we were clear. And about a mile later, we stopped.
Yep.
Came to a complete stop. It does take a mile to stop a freight train.
Now, where did this happen?
Oh, out between south of Sapulpa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, I know the area. Well, when I was a young child, probably around 65, 66, 67, all that period of time, due to life circumstances, you don't always end up where you think you're going to end up, and I actually lived on the Katy Railroad. So you were running the Frisco, and if you had derailed anywhere near, if you'd been with the Katy Railroad, you'd have taken us out, because we literally lived on the railroad in about a 150 square foot house.
Well, I've been involved in several derailments, but
Yeah. The Katy tracks were a little rickety.
They were. That railroad did not quite have as much money as they needed to have.
No, and that's back when all the boxes were wood. It's really funny because when I was when I went off to auction school, my best friend at auction school was a guy from Denison, Texas, and he had ridden in a caboose for 50-something years. He was a caboose rider. That was his job. And he said he sat in the back of the caboose and practiced his tongue twisters for 50 years so he could go to auctioneering school. And when he retired from the Katy Railroad, that's what he did. He went to auction school.
I believe he was either a rear brakeman or a conductor.
He never conducted an auction, but I think the greatest day of his life was the day he became a colonel as an auctioneer.
Right.
And he was proud of that forever. Came to all my auctions. I think he kind of lived vicariously through me as a young, 19, 20-year-old. Pretty wild stuff. So you tore it up as a you tore it up with the Frisco Railroad, and then what happened? You're off to law school. You're in law school.
I'm in law school.
Mm-hmm. So
I started out in night school, then I was able to go to day school.
And this was in Tulsa.
In Tulsa, yeah. University of Tulsa.
Mm-hmm. And so you wrap up that, and then what's your transition from there?
Well, then I started practicing law. Plus doing some. I was a good student and did well, and so I became a adjunct instructor at law school, trial practice. That was what I liked to do.
Right. And you and I have had a few conversations, so I know a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're a great storyteller too. I always enjoy hearing your stories and the things that you've done in your life. You've gone through a lot of different things. You've been involved with sports. You love sports.
I do.
You love sports people.
I do.
I would like for you to just share with us a little bit about your interest in hockey. And I know that you've been involved in some cool things related to hockey, and you're a big Stars fan and have a lot of friends in that area.
And that
Share with me a little bit about your experience in, I think, minor league hockey.
Yeah, we had I and two other gentlemen were able to put a bid on a hockey team in Albany, New York, here as we lived here in Dallas. Our children played youth hockey. In fact, my wife and I ran the Dallas Junior Hockey Association in the 80s. And my bride, not knowing any better, as my son and I mocked her one day as we were trying to find a hockey star to come to our kids' tournament during the Christmas season. And she said, I'm going to call the Hockey Hall of Fame and our friend Phil Pritchard and ask him if he could bring down the Stanley Cup. Since we can't get any live people, stars, and they come to Dallas.
Now, was this pre-Stars?
Yes.
This is when they were the
1986.
They were the North Stars back then.
Yeah, they were still skating up in their shopping center mall rink.
I've got a really good friend that used to have, and he's still in Minneapolis, and he used to be one of the kids that worked at the arena back then. And he's got all the old pictures on his office wall. And, of course, they're still stinging over the Stars coming here years ago. And because that was their number one thing. A lot of people think the Vikings were the biggest thing in town, but they really weren't. The Minnesota North Stars were quite the thing. So she reaches out and asks for the Stanley Cup, and then what happens?
As we mocked her, and Phil, whom we had met in Toronto a year or two earlier, probably on a tour of the Hockey Hall of Fame. He was brand new as a new employee, and he's grown to be their executive director. And who gave us that tour said, "Well, let me check the schedule. Maybe it's free." And he called her back, and said, "Yeah, when do you want me? I'll bring it down with I and one of my associates will come down." Now, I said it was free. We did have to pay the air.
Yeah. You paid the freight.
I had to pay the freight for the cup and for the personnel, but it was well worth it.
Well, at least you didn't send him by train.
No, that was good. It would have taken a while, and they may have hit a house or something.
Well, I think that's an awesome story. I don't know if
It's the first time it ever been on display at an amateur hockey event in its entire history.
That's cool.
Because the legend was, it just wouldn't. It was never going to be available to a amateur hockey event, especially a kids tournament in Dallas, Texas.
So where was? Do you remember where the banquet was?
That banquet. Well, it wasn't. We had it. We didn't have a banquet. We had a hockey tournament. Kids hockey tournament. Yeah.
So where was that?
That
held?
was out at Valley Ranch. At the only sheet of ice that existed in Dallas that wasn't in a mall. That didn't have stuff.
Wasn't it the Galleria or Prestonwood?
Or the other. Well, Prestonwood didn't exist in those days. We had one sheet of ice, and we just had our fingers crossed that we could keep it hard enough to play hockey.
I'll bet.
So we had 20 teams, and my wife, who seems to always in a hurry, and we have I think she has an attorney on call, not me, but another. When she gets tickets, was stopped and had to, but it ended up with no ticket and with an Irving police officer, and he turned on the siren and was her escort.
Nice.
To the rink that day. But again, we set some precedents, and hockey became something we loved. My son played it through high school. Decided he needed to do something else, and but we were able to buy this team in '86 and put a bid on it out of bankruptcy, and soon after taking over, we learned quickly why we could buy it out of bankruptcy. Now, the competition for youth and high school and college hockey was the real competition and challenge.
Yeah.
However, several of the guys that played were with the North Stars, and they were on the team when they came to Dallas.
Neat.
So there was a connection there, and we then started this charity, and GALT became a official charity of the Dallas Stars because we've always advertised and marketed these magnificent animals, these retired racers, as retired athletes.
Sure.
And we're fortunate to live here in Dallas, Texas, where so many professional athletes have retired, not just from the local franchises, but nationally, just because of they love the location. Well, as Tommy John of the Tommy John Surgery said, well, it's centrally located. We got the airport, and you can play golf just about every day of the year.
Yep. Name and tell us some of the other folks who have supported you. And of course, I know some of them, and we just had some of them at our auction and gala and dinner.
Oh.
Tell just mention some names that have worked with you, so people realize the magnitude of the celebrities that have been involved.
Well, all the famous cowboys have helped us. If they're Hall of Famers, they've been at our event and allowed us to use their name and their image, and would come and drink and make merry with all our guests, as you saw. Drew Pearson just a month ago.
Yep.
Or so.
Drew's great, and went to Tulsa. Got a little background up there. Went to college at Tulsa.
Yes, he did. Where I went to law school, and we
Undrafted cowboy.
Yeah.
He's got a great story, and he's great as a guest at an event.
Oh, he's wonderful, as they all are.
Yeah. We had Ludwig.
Oh yeah, Craig is honorary chairman, still is, and has been involved with us since the early days.
Fairly gregarious.
Oh, that's an understatement, don't you think? and I amuse him to no end, because since I'm about 1/3 his size.
I understand. The funny thing about Ludwig is, he is a hockey player. I mean, you just when you meet him, you realize he was supposed to be a hockey player,
and he was.
And he was. Yeah. So let's talk about the Greyhounds. So you met a Greyhound. What year was that?
1996.
So what happened?
Well, it took us a year or two. My wife finally met the Greyhound.
This was this the adoption, the first?
No, it was not her first adoption. It was her first encounter with a Greyhound. It was perhaps a year later at this gentleman's home in Boston. And then we decided, when we came back from that trip, we decided to try to adopt a Greyhound. It took about 6 months. There was not any dogs really available, and we didn't know whom to call. There was an article in the newspaper, and we actually got that group's last dog, and it was the last dog they ever adopted, Greyhound. And we brought her home, and she was not well, just because she had a wound in her tail that had not been properly attended, had some gangrene, and so we had to nurse her back to health. And but the dog turned out to be the reason we started Greyhound Adoption League of Texas, or as we call it, GALT, when we talk in shorthand. And she lived with us for about 16 years.
Wow.
We're on our 15th and 16th hounds since those days.
What was the name of your first? Do you remember?
Her name? Oh yes, Angel.
Angel.
Oh yeah.
Well, now see that kind of says it all, doesn't it? You know,
Indeed.
it started it all.
And she loved people and hated every other Greyhound she ever encountered. But we forced a couple on her, and she ended up being a good sport about it.
Tell me, what a lot of people have never encountered a Greyhound. They you know what I mean? They don't know. You don't see them. You don't see them like when you see these pet adoption things. You know, whether it's whether it's any of the other groups that are trying to adopt out animals. I've never seen a Greyhound available before. So tell me, what are the instincts and the nuances about a Greyhound that make them a great pet or a great mate? What is it?
A favorite companion animal for now over 3,000 years. This dog originated in the Middle East during that millennium. That part of Africa was actually had grass plains, especially around the coast. It wasn't as arid as it is today. These hounds were bred to hunt by sight because they can see a mile and a half away, and they could see wild, fast game. And these dogs have continued to be picked up by the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Romans, and that's what moved them to Europe. The only dog mentioned in the Bible in Psalms about by name was really Greyhound or Greek hound, which has been anglicized to Greyhound. The name Greyhound does not refer to a color, but it's again as an anglicization of the Greyhound. The dog has donated. It's not the oldest dog on earth. Those came out of Asia. They're closer to the wolf than the Greyhound, but the Greyhound's not that far behind. The dog is a dog that's worked as a universal canine blood donor because of their DNA contributions, and they're a favorite, and they tolerate it quite well. Some of our dogs work. We'll give 1 or 2 pints a year to a emergency clinic or to our main clinics when we need emergency services and surgery that would require blood transfusion. We've taken dogs in from animal seizures that had been bloodlet by as many as 2,000 ticks. And we've had to stop treatment and give them blood transfusions as we were removing all those ticks. We're the number one group in the state that all the municipal shelters and humane societies will call if they have a sighthound or sighthound mix, because we do take sighthounds, other sighthounds such as Borzoi, Afghans, and Salukis, and their mixes. Mm-hmm. There's a large market in West Texas for ranch dogs. Their favorite ranch dog to protect their livestock against coyote attacks is a Greyhound and other sighthound mix.
Interesting. Well,
and we get many of those as strays.
You know, whenever you look at the other societies, and you were mentioning the Greeks, and you start looking at a lot of the artwork from those times.
Indeed.
you see the greyhound.
You'll see a sighthound or a close cousin of a greyhound.
And
indeed.
if you've never noticed it, you will now.
You will, indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed.
Almost like lions,
Well, it was
because you see them, they're very majestic in the way that they're presented.
indeed. I agree. Until 1749, it was illegal for a commoner in Europe to even own a greyhound.
Is that right?
Indeed. Yeah, it was the dog of nobility because it was the hunting dog. They didn't want the common folk to be able to hunt as well as the
It's the elite.
elite. You know how the elites are.
Well, I've known them one or two.
Yeah.
So tell me, let's look at the overall picture of the greyhound racing business, because I think a lot of people, unless you've ever been to a race or you've seen it featured on an expose or something on television, which brings attention to it, tell me the states that have had the largest tracks that we're dealing with. I'm assuming California.
Well, there were several tracks in California over time. There, Colorado, Idaho. Many states had greyhound racing.
How many states do you think?
Probably,
Half of them?
I would say maybe a third.
Okay. Memphis?
Memphis still has. Well, actually, it's East Memphis. I mean West Memphis, in which is actually Arkansas.
Yeah.
But there's still a
I've
track
seen that
operating
track.
there.
I've seen that. I've never been to a race, so I don't know. I
Well-
know here in Texas, south of Houston.
Yeah, those tracks are been shut down except for a 2-month program once a year, either held at Harlingen or at the track near Lamarck, Texas. Now, I need to make a statement here. Our organization is non-political.
Okay.
We take no official stand for or against racing. We have worked with the industry, meaning with various and numerous greyhound farms, that's what they're called, and kennel operators and such, because Texas had such a large number of breeders and was producing so many dogs nationally and internationally that for us to be able to have access to those animals when they no longer were competitive or they were injured or on the farm or became too old, because it is a young greyhound sport. It's not for the older dogs.
Okay.
So we've worked with them, but we've always and still have maintained that.
So you've basically stood by and available to take them based on availability. So when they kind of outlived their racing life,
When they're retired
yeah.
and they need a home, they can no longer compete.
Do you have enough room for them?
We do now. We have a large number of 100-plus foster homes. We have our kennel called Hound House that we have just taken up the lease, the operations of that since January 1.
Where's this?
It's Carrollton on Dozier Road. You can actually still Google the address, Hound House. Now, it was open to the public. We used to house some of our dogs there as they were transitioning to foster care, from veterinarian services to foster. It's no longer open to the public. It's open to folks who would like to see a greyhound or be interested in adopting. We do not house nor care for any other hound or dog, I should say, except our own. Though those are greyhounds, are greyhound mixes, and other sighthounds that are part of our adoption program.
So now you've expanded out to Austin, Santa Fe, and Albuquerque.
Indeed.
Tell me about New Mexico. Why New Mexico?
Well, we were approached by a group of past, or I would say members of a past group. Everyone had aged in place. It's hell getting old, Mike. It happened to me too.
Maybe we'll have to adopt you.
And they adopt me now. That's true. I need a good home with tender, loving care, of course.
Of course.
As long as they would like to. There was another organization that has a national presence, but they loan their 501c3 certificate, but there's no support that's rendered. they needed to get associated with a group with a great reputation, and we have a great one nationally and even internationally, thanks to several of our projects. Because we brought hounds in from Spain called Galgo or Galga, depending on their gender, and we bring in Irish hounds also. If there's time, we'll even talk a bit about that.
What's your dream? You might want to mention your wife.
Oh, my wife, my bride, my co-founder, and my and she's the soul of our organization, and she lets me think I'm the brains, but I think she's actually the brains too, and the soul.
And her name is
Susie McQuade.
Yeah, of course I know that, but
Oh well,
those
who don't know,
this is your shout out.
There you go. Hey, if you're listening or will be listening, hey, hi Susie.
Yep, she's awesome.
She is.
She is awesome, and of course she recruited me to get involved in this.
Well, that's right. I met her. She reaches out. She does talk, and always selling. She's always recruiting, because we need lots and lots of help when these hounds come.
Yep.
And we've always needed help. And if we didn't have our great adoption success and our welfare program entirely to our volunteers, because we are an all-volunteer organization. I'm the executive director role, but I receive no money, and just psychic income. And if you want to join a group that you want to earn high psychic incomes, we're the group, and we always need volunteers.
Well, let's talk about how a person can give. As you know, I work with a lot of groups. I don't ask everyone to be on this show, but this is a group that first off, I had a quick connection to you guys, and it was when I first met Susie. Of course she was kind of recruiting me to talk about doing this, and then the next thing I know, I'm doing it. And we had that night this has been about 2.5 months ago, roughly.
Probably.
Yeah, about 2.5 months ago. And you also receive some great support from people like Chuck Greenberg.
Chuck is an adopter.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about Chuck.
Chuck is, he was the sports attorney that put together the Ranger purchase from Tom Hicks to the new ownership.
Right.
It was a part of their operations for a period of time. And but Chuck's real business has always been minor league baseball teams. He owns several, and he owns the
Rough Riders.
The Rough Riders. And but his support and his love of the Greyhound hasn't waned one bit. Mark Falwell is an adopter. Mark, for those who don't know,
voice of the
he's a television voice announcer.
Yep.
And broadcaster for the Mavericks.
Yep.
And we've had several Mavericks that work with us and help us.
And so when we had our event a few months back, we had Drew. And we had Craig Ludwig, and we also had Falwell. And so these guys really step up.
Yep.
Because I'll just give them the premise of the deal, because we'd love to have people come. We'd like to invite as many people to buy tickets and attend the next event that we have. But basically what it is each of the guests, whoever it is, every year it's different. But you've had many over the last 11 years. These professionals in sport will get up and they'll have their session to talk and interact with a room or a group of people, while in the other room there's someone else available, and you rotate them around. So
we did that. That was the plan this year.
Yeah, it was great. It gave everybody a chance to do a little meet and greet, before, during, and after, and some mixing it up.
Well, we have a cocktail hour, and you hang out with them, ask them questions, ask them to tell you stories for an hour and a half. Then we have dinner. In fact, they're seated at maybe at your table.
Yeah.
For the evening, unless they're making their presentation, then they're back in their seats.
There's a lot of selfies being taken.
Oh, absolutely.
And like with Drew Pearson, of course, and I've known Drew forever, and one of the things that he loves to do is he loves to share with the fans the opportunity to get up close to a world champion ring and he's real good about that.
Oh,
He'll
indeed.
let you even try it on and take a picture. I mean,
Randy White and all his cohorts, the Aaron Curtin,
yep, the Manster,
the Manster was there.
Yeah.
He's been there many times and still supports us.
quite a gentle giant that
And-
man is. Well, and he's a
Cliff Harris and all of that, all of his colleagues
Sure,
have one
sure.
time or another have been one of our guests.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Chuck and Mark and his wife. All right, they actually volunteer also.
Sure.
And so does Craig every chance he gets.
You've got a neat network.
Yeah, we do.
And they also typically will offer a package, something to do with them. And I don't know anywhere you can go to an event and get Craig Ludwig to say, okay, you get the chance to come out and hang out in the backyard.
Yeah,
and drink beer and just hang out,
Indeed.
on the patio. So the other thing that I would say with a lot of the groups that I work with, they have some major donors who have offered some seed money to help the organization. Could be 150, 200,000. Some organizations as much as $1 million. There are also a lot of foundations, family foundations that will donate, or life giving. I would just say this is an appeal, and then we'll talk about how people can offer their services. But I would just say if you are an individual that loves animals, okay, especially gentle ones that want to be loved, and they are athletes. I mean, they are athletes, and you just there's the stride on those animals is unbelievable.
Indeed, and that brings up a point. Most people's first encounter with a greyhound is seeing them on a movie racing or on a video or a television program. Now they're quite active when they're running that 45-mile-an-hour pace, which is, but then they're quite gentle and quite sedate. They're like because to propel a body, muscles to propel a body that fast, with that weight, takes a lot of energy. So they're 45-mile-an-hour couch potatoes. They rest a lot. It's like the cheetah will run the 60 miles an hour for about 50 yards, and that cheetah needs a nap or two.
Yeah. This is the dog version of the cheetah.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. And so they're quite gentle. They love humans. They're highly socialized. They're easy to train, easy to housebreak. In fact, the housebreaking usually will take an hour or less if you'll just follow our instructions. And then because they're kennel trained, and you just have to show them that the entire home is their kennel and this is where they live. And if they go out on a regular basis, they don't have accidents. They don't have a problem.
They're smart.
Oh, they are smart.
Super smart.
And several of my dogs have been trained to be service dogs, and many of our dogs have gone through service dog training. And
I've traveled through a lot of, as you know, I live on airplanes, and I have seen quite a few of the greyhounds as service dogs. They seem to be a natural fit.
Well, a lot of them will work as comfort dogs, as PTSD dogs. They're a good fit for that.
Sure.
I've worked with veterans and trained dogs for veterans, and we let the veteran choose, and no one's chosen a greyhound, but that's only because no one's chosen a greyhound, and we and other dogs were chosen by those veterans. Again, it's the veteran's choice, but they would make an excellent dog.
Well, and
for that job.
Therein lies perhaps an opportunity to network with some of the veteran organizations too.
And we have one of our adopters is the head trainer at Patriot Paws out in Rockwall. So we do have that, and plus my Marine Corps connections have made us a part of that network. So,
sure.
but we're always looking for more. It's like our revenue stream. You talked about a big donor, which we've not had that fortune yet. We've had some smaller behest, and that's been extremely helpful. But as I think I mentioned, we have to earn our money the old-fashioned way. We have to be constantly begging. We have fundraisers. We have online auctions. We have an e-commerce store, and we have a project which I've named Hermes Helping Hounds. Hermes is a design house out of Paris, and we have accumulated a large portfolio of Hermes scarves that we sell online, and we sell all over the world and ship all over the world. In fact, one sold this morning before I came here.
Well, hopefully after this show today, we'll increase the volume and sell a bunch more.
Well,
how do they go about finding the online store?
Well, they just go to our website, which is at galtx.org, galtx.org, and there's a Shop Now button.
So just to remind everybody, of course, we introduced the show, but at this point, there's a lot of people that just pop on.
Yes, indeed.
And so we are talking to John McQuade, and he is the founder and board member and president and CEO and chief cook and bottle washer for Greyhound Adoption League of Texas, and now as added on New Mexico. What you can go to that website and engage on multiple levels. You can look at adopting a greyhound. I'm sure you can do that.
Indeed.
You've got
like
this
an application.
You
yes.
mentioned this tsunami of greyhounds that are going to come out of Florida, which is, if you think about it, it's really like the aftermath of a hurricane, where you in the big world, it's all types of dogs, but in this case, this is a specific breed, specific group of athletes that have basically been dedicated to racing and making money for people, and now they need to be taken care of.
Indeed, and that's always been the case.
Now, is one of the big challenges with the puppies? I say puppies. I think of all dogs as puppies, but let's just say the athlete. Do they have a lot of leg problems?
No.
No. Okay.
There's no. One thing the racing industry has done is kept the breed extremely genetically sound. There's no inbreeding. They have very strict limitations how close one can breed.
Okay.
Our AKC friends, of course, have destroyed just about every. Mm-hmm. They'll argue. Okay, the only time I'm going to get political is they inbreed too much. Too many of the breeders inbreed those dogs to replicate a look, and they don't care about the health because they're show dogs there. And once their show days are over, which is usually a very short window, they seem to be indifferent if there's other medical problems.
How old does a greyhound normally live?
14 to 16 years.
So
advance in veterinary medicine has been astounding. It's like the same thing as extended our lives.
So if you have a racing hound and they retire, how old are they usually when they retire them?
Well, if it's gone a full career, it's probably in its fourth year.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
They started 18 months for the earliest. We've had I actually have a dog that raced in his fifth year. Didn't win anything, but did race. Made 8 races.
There's a vetting process to adopt a greyhound?
Indeed. References have
that.
to be provided. There's an application. If you have another pet, we need to know about that pet. We do check to make certain that pet has been is up on all shots and has had regular veterinarian care according to our protocols, which is making sure they're on heartworm preventatives and other parasite preventatives, and have had their dentals and have had all their shots. Mm-hmm. If that will disqualify somebody if they don't have that record. If they have a pet, and that pet has to get along with this greyhound, and the greyhound has to get along with the pet. We don't want to displace an animal that's already has a home,
right.
Just to place a greyhound. We don't have to do that. We have many applications. There's a shortage of dogs. We probably have the largest collection of adoptable greyhounds in America right now. Again, not by design, just by circumstance.
Virtue of circumstance.
These dogs have this marvelous temperament. Again, they're very gentle. They get along well with gentle children. People ask us, do they get along with children? A greyhound has a very light coat and no body fat. Therefore, if you a child would pinch or poke or something, it would be discomfort to another human or another playmate, will make that greyhound unhappy. Mm-hmm. 2, the greyhound usually will not react, will try to get away. But again, if it's a gentle child, I grew up with large livestock. I walked around and never had a problem, but I also respected them because I was well taught to be gentle and to use my head. And just so Rambix's children aren't the best. But older children, excellent. They're excellent pets.
What's it take to foster a greyhound?
Fill out a foster application again, and as also to volunteer to fill out an application. So you're and fosters are given. We give all medical expenses, so it's none of that. We provide all the preventatives. We do ask you to provide the food, and only and of course, under the tax law, if you do spend any money fostering, that's tax deductible as a donation.
So they can also they can buy something online to support.
Indeed.
They can attend our fundraisers. They can attend our annual fundraiser.
That's right, and others.
Which I'll be back, from what I understand.
Yes,
I'm almost family.
Yes, you are.
Yeah,
we want you
great.
back.
It was great. It was a great night, and I really it was one of my favorite events of the year. I'll tell you that.
Well,
and I go to a few.
I know.
So
that's high praise indeed. Thank you.
Well, you and I have become fast friends, and we kind of enjoy drinking some wine together. You do love wine.
I do.
Yes, I know. And you're pretty picky about your wine.
I am very picky about my wine.
So if you want to become a member of GALT, we've got multiple levels. We have a $1,500 level, and that's the double diamond membership. Do you know what's all involved in that?
Oh, sure. Well, you get discounts on for events and tickets to those events, and on our online store, our e-commerce site, which is getting bigger and better every year, even with some things you might even want to own. Yeah, it goes beyond T-shirts.
Sure.
And then just the pleasure you're being generous and knowing that, and of course they're tax deductible, those donations.
Good. $500 diamond membership is a platinum plus a custom collar from Silk Road Collars up to a $50 value.
That's right. You get some very tony dog beds with the major one.
And you have a quarterly virtual raffle too.
We do. And if you're on there as higher your level, you get some very nice artwork and something that's worth at least $250 per quarter, and something that's worth nearly $1,000 at the end of the year.
Very good.
And we're thinking about some plane tickets and some other things that will be that will surprise that winner.
Sure.
And all members you're in every drawing. So higher your level, the more virtual tickets one gets.
We've got multiple levels. There's the $1,500, the $500, the $250, the $100, and the $50 level. So there's a level for everybody. There's no reason why you shouldn't join this group if you love animals and you love athletes. Here's a great chance to interact with a very special group of people. And I must tell you, it's quite impressive the people that you have involved. Professional people, people of what I would say high standard, and people who care. It's all about the heart. At the end of the day, there's so many people in Dallas-Fort Worth and Austin and Houston, and people that are watching this show. Literally, we have people in South Africa. If somebody in South Africa needs a scarf, we've got a scarf for you. There's just a lot of different things they can do to be a part. If they do volunteer, what are they volunteering to do?
Well, they have areas of interest. We need help with admin, which they can do virtually from their own home, because all our data is online, and you're given access to that, to be able to make administration entries, because it still takes a lot of paperwork and admin to even run a volunteer, if not more. If you want to be something to deal with events, you can put that's an interest, and you'll be called to work some events. We have our dinners, and we have other auctions, and we have our birthday party we do annually, and we'll have some other events, smaller wine tastings, bourbon tastings. We seem to do a lot of drinking and eating in GALT.
That's my kind of organization.
Yeah,
John.
we're just heavy drinkers with a dog problem. Some wry wit once observed about us, and that's probably a true statement.
Could be. That's what I witnessed.
And but we have a good time. If you come to our events, you'll always have a good time. We do the Irish Festival every year, and Still trying to win the first prize, but we've won numerous second and third. That's the North Texas Irish at the festival. That we're there every year with our hounds. And
Sweet.
And you can join Clan Greyhound.
Very nice.
Oh, yeah, we have a clan. We're a clan now.
Yeah. Yeah. We actually have auctioneering school starting on Friday here in Dallas at America's Auction Academy, and we've now moved to Addison. Seems like a lot of things are happening in Addison.
We're happening in Addison.
You're happening in Addison, and but we've attracted the Irish. And find that amazing. So about a year and a half ago, we started getting our first Irish participants in the auction school, and I have another group of Irish coming in this week on Thursday to be a part of the school.
Excuse me. Do they make their calls out in with an Irish lilt?
Well, yes, they can't quite get south. They can't get the southern thing down, but it is great because they have not. Their chant is what we call it, is not what is norm to the United States, and vice versa. And so we're kind of Americanizing the Irish chant, and for good or bad, they seem to really be taking to it, to the point that I actually I was a sponsor for the basically their what is considered their rookie contest for their auctioneering at their convention.
Oh my!
And so the plan is I'm supposed to be in Ireland in January to participate in that event. So I'm looking forward to going to Ireland. You might have to go with me just to keep me straight.
You do that, you need to bring back a couple of Irish hounds for us, which you can do.
That'd be pretty awesome. I want to tell people that if they would like to contact you or your team. Or your lovely wife, they can go to info@galtx.org.
Indeed.
That is info@galtx.org, or online at galtx.org, and you can get involved and be a part of one of the greatest groups that I've been with in a long, long time. And so we highly recommend Greyhound Adoption League of Texas. And if you're in New Mexico and want to participate, I'm sure we can make that happen. And who knows where we're going to be in another 2 or 3 years. We could be anywhere in the United States where we're needed.
We will be.
You have any closing statement, Counselor?
Well, I do. And our motto is no gray turned away, but that also includes any sighthound now. And we've never had to say no to any dog, regardless of the medical condition of that animal. We've repaired hundreds of broken legs, and but again, volunteer, donate,
help us out,
adopt a hound. You can work at our kennel, play with the dogs. You can do all that too.
Thank you, John. So, on behalf of John McQuade and myself, Mike McGavel Jones, we thank you for being a part of this show today. Thank you very much, John. Glad to have you on. And this will be out there for a long time, so hopefully we can help you generate some funds and make great things happen for the Greyhound. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll see you next time, ladies and gentlemen, from Dallas, Texas at Lincoln Center. Adios. Till next time, we bid you adieu.